Oh, so one of the sort of key tips I would give for new players trying to get into Pokemon Auto Chess is to really be a bit more thoughtful about how you use your items. Items are unreasonably important to how your game will go, to be totally honest, and it's more importantly, how you use them rather than just how many items you have. So, just to clarify, this is not going to be a guide on complex itemization. It's simply designed as a way to start thinking a little bit more about what items will fit what unit, as well as general tips on how to think when you are itemizing. The first thing, above all else, I want to mention for new players is to focus not just on the effect of an item, but also the stats it gives. If I just sort of, I don't think I can get it to stay, but you can see, for example, with the wide lens. Now, you get +2 attack range with it. However, you also get 2 other stats right below the little wide lens name there. You can learn those pretty simply. Like that one, for example, you can generally tell by checking on these ones on the side for what each one is, because the stats they get are based on the 2 items that you use to combine them. Wide lens, for example, is a combination of the black glasses and the never melt ice, which means that you will gain 10% crit chance and +2 special defense. As such, it is a very, very easy trap to fall into where you just focus solely on the effect of the item and don't care about the stats. The stats are maybe not as important, but still very, very important. Like some of them do give some very big stat buffs. I mean, Assault Vest +20 special defense is absolutely massive. I mean, it's absolutely huge for sort of increasing the livelihood of a tank unit, basically. Second general tip is I'm going to log in for this because I'm going to tell you to just not trust the meta page. It's good, it really is, but more specifically, don't trust the item report popularity. This is because, for one, auto chess is a very quickly changing meta, and you know these sort of items are going to become more and less useful with buffs and nerfs to either themselves or more indirect buffs and nerfs to the users. Um, Also, consider that popularity of an item does not correlate with this item is good for everyone. The Polka Doll and the Muscle Band are 2 very, very strong items, but you can't just slap them on every unit and it would be useful. More importantly, it won't, it will have different levels of use between your units. The only item I would say in the entire game that is pretty much equally useful for every unit and you won't really have to think too hard about who you're going to put it on is the Wonder Box, because the Wonder Box is pretty much always going to be beneficial. Everything else will differ in value between units and also between having it and crafting a different item. I will say though, the meta page can be quite nice for this sort of section here, the sort of popular items for each unit. It's still not perfect, as I said, with the changing meta, but as a little starting point, it's quite good, although I would recommend potentially switching to Great Ball or Ultra Ball to get a more complex sort of look at what the best sort of items will be for these units. I personally go for Ultra, but I think Great isn't too bad as well for sort of easier combinations. Um, Next thing I want to say is he's explained really well in, I'm gonna pronounce the name as GGilou. It might be something else, I don't know how to pronounce it. The sort of main itemization guide that you can find when you look this stuff up. It's a little bit more complex and more so it goes a little bit more in depth into specific items, which is not really what I'm going to do here. But the start of that video has a very, very important sort of concept that I think is crucial to understand, and that is the idea of stats multiplying. So, just to give an example, charcoal items, say you were to grab a punching glove and a razor claw. Well, if you do that, you're stacking 3 attack and 3 attack. So, those two, theoretically, having 6 extra attack is pretty huge. However, if you were to stack, say, again, an attack item like the razor claw with a attack speed item from the magnet section, such as the X-ray vision, those two stats are going to multiply because you have high attack and you have attack speed, so you're going to be attacking quicker, and you're going to be attacking with a higher level of force. That is going to be doing a lot more damage, realistically, than just stacking attack. So, generally, the stats that tend to combine quite well, again, this is sourced from the same video. I will leave a link in the description because it is absolutely incredible for, although some of the specific item descriptions are outdated, the overall view of how to look at items is incredible. So, the stats they generally stack are attack speed and attack, special defense and defense, just to make a very compact unit, and PP and ability power. Again, crit chance is a little bit different where you do want to stack it, but obviously you only really want that for crit builds. But overall, all the other ones you want to stack together. Now, in terms of which item fits which Pokemon, I would, as such, separate it into three sort of broad archetypes. There is your sort of tanky items. I didn't mention this before, but that does include the Miracle Seed as well. So there's your tank units. Think, say, a lot of the units in rock and ground who are there to absorb sort of hits and do pretty much fuck all else. Just sit there and let everyone else do the work while it sort of absorbs as much damage as physically possible without dying. As such, for tank units, you want to create items that generally involve Miracle Seeds, Never Melt Ices, and Heart Scales. So, in this case, you are looking for things like the Muscle Band, like the Pokédoll, in some cases the Max Revive, although don't be drawn to just using the Max Revive every single time. I know it looks theoretically like a really good item, but dear God, is it not good in every situation, and it does not synergize well with a lot of items. Yeah, other tanky sort of items. Some of them aren't really tanky in these lists. You can kind of tell that from how much of the stat they give and what they actually do. Like the power lens, for example, is one of those sort of items where it's, it gives decent amount of bulk. But say the wide lens is it only really gives +2, and the focus there is going to be on the effect. Some items are more effect based than the stat, but the stat is also always going to be important. Shiny Charm is a very solid item for a tank. Um, as I mentioned before, Assault Vest and Rocky Helmet are both really good. If you can get both of them on, that's a really sort of solid setup. Green Orb, fantastic. Protective Pads is good in very specific scenarios. Plus 60 shield is really nice. Um, yeah, so those are your sort of tanks. And I think you can probably say, as if you just sort of put them into these sort of RPG classes, just have a little look at a Pokemon and think, okay, so this Pokemon is probably going to be doing a lot of blank damage. Therefore, I'm going to be using this specific set of items. The second sort of type, again in line with those multiplications, is the sort of mage items. So think anything created with the Mystic Water and the Twisted Spoon. Again, you probably want a good mixture of PP and ability power, but the balance generally depends on the unit. Have you got a unit that hopes to spam their ability a lot quickly, or one that just wants to hit hard and, per spell? Stuff like Soul Dew is good on pretty much a very large amount of units, to be fair, as long as they're one that can live a decent amount of time. A lot of your sort of backliners will benefit from having a Soul Dew around. Um, Blue Orb, again, that's going to just add a nice chunk of damage to you. There's things like the Aqua Egg, which is really good on. I mean, if you've ever played against like a sound comp, you're going to know the danger of an Aqua Egg for giving on, say, a Floette and just letting the engine of a sound team run, run, run. As for the spoon, stuff like the choice specs is nice to just give a bit of ability power. Upgrade is good on pretty much any caster unit, I would say. Again, as long as it's one that can take a hit. Nomicon is good. Reaper Cloth is good for if you are building a crit special build. You've got a couple more tanky items here. Again, some of the items do cross over. Some of them try to be like half and half items, like Choice Scarf, for example. I personally would advise against using Choice Scarf in a lot of situations because it's one of those items where it tries to be an attacking item and tries to be a defensive item, and honestly, it kind of fails at both jobs. Um, so yeah. And then finally, it is the fighter sort of class, the ones who are going to be focusing on their basic attacks. Stuff like your wild teams, for example, are going to be focusing on getting that basic attack up. That involves using the magnet and the charcoal, and to an extent also the black glasses. As such, there's items such as the punching glove, which is good on your sort of more bulky sort of physical attackers. Red orb, which is good in like most situations. Um, Amulet coin, although it's not bulky, it's a really nice item in the early game to get a good econ compared to everyone else, especially if you're running a offensive sort of strategy. Black glasses items, you kind of just want to run these together. That's a general tip with black glasses. Obviously, outside of Wonderbox, as I said, which can kind of be run with anything, most of these items will synergize with each other. You want to run, say, Razor Fang, Razor Claw, and Scope Lens. It depends on the unit, but generally, if you're running a build with one of these crit items, you want to run them with other crit items. Whereas if you're running Charcoal and Magnet, try and maybe run one Charcoal item and one Magnet item. Potentially try and run a, say, I don't know, a Muscle Band and a what's pretty good for this sort of combination? I guess a red orb, for example. It's going to stack a lot nicer. And I believe that is all there is to say. As I said, this is just a very, very basic item guide, just to help you potentially visualize how adding items works just a little bit more. As I've mentioned repeatedly out the video, please go watch the other video I've put in the description. I cannot recommend it enough. It's just a good way to also start learning about how to use items. Um, and thank you very much. I appreciate watching the video. If you did enjoy or found it helpful, I would very much appreciate a like and subscribe. No worries if not, no as always. And I hope you have a very nice day. Thank you.